I'm Serenity. Standing in the opulent dining room of the Millfield Country Club, the air thick with tension, I can't help but reflect on how I got here. The room is filled with people, but all eyes are on me and the woman by my side, Miss Harper, the one who truly raised me. My mother, Mrs. Thompson, in her elegant evening gown, approaches me with a forced smile. My dear Serenity, I've waited so long for this moment, she says, her voice ringing through the room. The photographer raises her camera, capturing the scene. I stand still, my arms at my sides, as she wraps her arms around me. The photograph will later be a stark contrast of her embrace and my passive stance, a truth the internet won't miss. She steps back and tries to lead me to the head table. Come, sit with your sister, she says. But I stand firm. Of course. And tonight, I'd like everyone to meet the woman who actually raised me, I say, my voice steady, just as Miss Harper taught me. Ms. Harper stands up from her seat. She walks towards the head table with a calm dignity, the badge on her lapel catching the light. It reads Director of Child Welfare Services. My mother's eyes widen as she sees it, and the wine glass slips from her hand, shattering on the parquet floor. Ms. Harper begins to speak. Good evening. I'm Ms. Harper, the Director of Child Welfare Services. I took Serenity home when her parents decided she was the difficult one and surrendered her at the county office. She opens the portfolio in her hand. I'm going to read 3 lines from her file. The first, from the voluntary placement agreement, she's the difficult one. Her sister has a future. Those were Mrs. Thompson's words, recorded by the intake worker, Miss Reed. A hushed murmur spreads through the room. My father shifts uncomfortably in his seat. Ms. Harper continues, the second line is an independent observation by Ms. Reed. The child presents as quiet, polite, and visibly frightened. Parental description does not match observed behavior. My mother sits down slowly, her face pale. The third line, Miss Harper says, is from a call in 2010, 13 months after Serenity's adoption was finalized. We made a mistake. We didn't read it carefully enough. Those were Mrs. Thompson's words. The room is dead silent. My sister, Luna, stands up. She looks at me for the first time in many years. Tears well in her eyes as she says, I believed them for so long. I'm sorry I waited until now. I'm pregnant, and I want our child to know her aunt. I reach into the portfolio and take out a letter. It's the one Luna sent me when she was 12. I thought she threw it away, she whispers. She did, but inside Ms. Harper's house, and Miss Harper doesn't throw things away, I reply. Luna begins to cry, and her fiancé, Mr. Carter, puts his arm around her. Ms. Harper picks up my coat, and we leave the room before the entree. As we drive home, I ask Ms. Harper, did you think it would feel like this? She replies, I thought it would be exactly like this. I knew you'd be calm, and I knew your mother would understand that things had changed. I've been watching Luna on social media, and I knew she was getting closer to saying what she said tonight. Let me take you back to the beginning. I was born in a small town, Millfield, to Mr. and Mrs. Thompson. Luna and I were twins, born just a few minutes apart. Our birth certificates were on a single sheet, Twin A, Luna Grace Thompson, Twin B, Serenity Rose Thompson. When we were 5, our kindergarten teacher wrote a report. She noted that we were both bright and well-behaved, but I asked more questions. My mother read the report and wrote difficult beside my name. It was the start of a label that would follow me for years. As I got older, my mother's words became more hurtful. One summer when I was 8, I had bad asthma. I heard her on the phone with her sister, saying, Luna is healthy and easy. Serenity is. Well, you know. I learned to be quiet, to be less. The summer before I turned 9, a family friend, Mrs. Hill, came over for coffee. I accidentally knocked a small porcelain figurine off the shelf. It broke into pieces. My mother turned to Mrs. Hill and said, "Luna is so easygoing. Serenity is the difficult one. We're learning to love them differently." Mrs. Hill went home that night and wrote down what my mother said in a small diary. I wouldn't find out about it for many years. One Tuesday in September, my mother told me to put on my school shoes. She said we had an errand. She packed a brown paper bag with some old clothes and a toothbrush. We drove to a tall, beige building in the town. Inside, we met Miss Reed, an intake worker at the Child Welfare Services. My mother told Miss Reed, "She's the difficult one. Take her. Luna has a future." She said it slowly, twice. I watched as Miss Reed wrote it down. But what my mother didn't know was that Miss Reed didn't believe her. Underneath my mother's words, Miss Reed wrote her own observation: "The child is quiet, polite, and frightened." Ms. Harper, who was a supervisor at the time, read the file. She decided to take me in. She told me, "Serenity, I'm Ms. Harper. I'm taking you to my house tonight. There's soup on the stove, and the light at the top of the stairs is on." I followed her to her car. For the first 38 nights at her house, I slept with the brown paper bag at the foot of my bed. On the 39th night, I decided it had done its job. Ms. Harper was different. She didn't call me difficult. She put a laminated schedule on the refrigerator, showing the times for breakfast, packing my bag, and catching the bus. She also wrote, "I'll be home by 5:45. If I'm late, call this number." She encouraged me to make my own decisions. One morning at breakfast, when I didn't feel like eating, she said, "You decide what's in the bag today." It was the first time an adult had given me that kind of choice. I went to a new school. Ms. Harper had talked to the principal in advance, so the teachers knew my situation, but the other children didn't. I sat by the window in my new class and didn't raise my hand for the first 6 weeks. Ms. Harper was studying for a master's degree in social work at night. She asked me to study with her and gave me my own notebook. She promised never to read it without my permission, and she kept that promise. For the first 3 years at Miss Harper's house, my biological family didn't contact me. But one day, a letter came from Luna. It was written on a piece of paper with a single moonflower printed in the corner. She wrote, "Mom says I shouldn't write. I don't know what they said happened. I don't think it was true. I miss you. I hope your new family is nice." I wrote back, but Luna never replied. Years later, Miss Harper told me she suspected my mother had intercepted the letter. When I was 13, I saw a Christmas card from my biological family at a friend's house. It showed my parents and Luna in front of a fireplace, but there was no sign of me. I asked for the card and kept it in a folder with other important things. The lie that I had run away was spread in the local church bulletin. It said, "Please pray for the Thompson family as they search for their lost daughter, Serenity, who left home unexpectedly." Ms. Harper kept the original bulletin. My adoption by Ms. Harper was finalized on my 13th birthday. The judge asked me if I understood what was happening. I said, "I'm not choosing. I'm being chosen." The judge wrote it down and signed the adoption decree. As I got older, I went to college and then to graduate school for an MFA in creative non-fiction. I started writing about the legal system that allows parents to surrender children based on behavior. My first published piece was in a well-known magazine. It was about the inconvenient child and how parents use the system to get rid of the child they don't want. In 2025, a publishing house offered me a contract for a memoir. I named it The Unwanted One, a foster daughter's memoir. I wanted to write it in the third person and call the protagonist Aurora because I knew Luna would recognize herself in the story. The book was published in 2026. At the launch event, a woman in her late 50s, Mrs. Hill, came up to me and said, "Some of us have been waiting for this book a long time, Serenity." After the book was on the New York Times bestseller list, CBS Mornings invited me for an interview. The host asked me if there was a moment when I knew I'd write the book. I said, I knew the moment I learned the word voluntary. My mother saw the interview and started calling. She left voicemails saying they had forgiven me and wanted to talk. Then came the invitation to Luna's engagement party. It was addressed to Serenity Thompson, not the name I had carried for so long. 2 days before the party, I received a padded mailer. Inside was a photocopy of our birth certificate and a note from Luna that said sorry. On the morning of the party, Miss Harper opened the bottom drawer of her desk. We looked at the file together. It contained the voluntary placement agreement, Ms. Reed's observation, and the call log from 2010. Ms. Harper said, "When I walk in there, I'm not just your mother. I'm also the office that recorded what they did." She decided to bring her badge to show that the truth couldn't be hidden. Now, as we drive home from the party, I know that the past is behind me. The hallway light at Miss Harper's house will always be on, a symbol of the home she gave me. My sister is allowed to reach out, and my parents can wait. I am Serenity Harper, and this is my story.